Hi, welcome to the Keys to Therapy. It's been a minute since I've done a solo episode, so we're going to make this one short and sweet. Today I wanted to talk about finding your niche. Some people say niche, whatever, same thing. So I'll just say niche for this because niche sounds a little fancy. So usually when you're in grad school, people are talking a lot about different populations that you can work with, different ages, different disorders, stuff like that. There's kind of you're given a little bit of everything, right? It's like pretty broad when it comes to your education so that you can see almost like a sampler platter, right? Or like an appetizer platter at a restaurant. Here's a little bit of everything and you figure out exactly what speaks to you or what you want to work with. Typically in your internships too, practicums, you will figure out a little bit more about who you like to work with and what type of work is speaking to you. But most people come out of grad school with kind of a generalist perspective. They are like, give me any clients, let me work with whoever, especially if you're not totally sure about what population. I did know some people in grad school who were insistent on, I want to work with kids, or I want to work with the older population, or I want to work on a military base, or whatever the situation was. Like a few people like really had a clear idea of who they wanted to work with, but I think for the majority of us, we were like, I just want to work and have a job. So I think we were all pretty open to anything. Now, a lot of places that hire new therapists also tend to be pretty generalist too. So a lot of community health facilities, typically a lot of hospitals. You're going to get a bit of everybody and everything, which is great in the beginning of your career as you're figuring out who you do your best work with and what populations really charge you and like stuff like that, right? You kind of want to have all of those examples because there may be a population that you come across that you didn't know you would like or wanted to work with and suddenly you do. So I know for me, the way life turned out, I ended up working in an area that was primarily military. So I worked on a military base and I didn't know much about the military at all. And then suddenly that was like my all day, every day. And I loved it. Who knew? So I actually really, really liked it. And I started there in 2015. I still now in 2023 see veterans and, retirees, active duty, or their family members. And I would have never expected that. So it's great to have varied experience earlier in your career because the population might sneak up on you that you didn't know that you wanted to work with or would really enjoy. So that's great for the first part of your career to have all of that experience, figure things out. But fairly quickly, you'll learn which populations you don't want to work with, which populations really drain you, what you really like and what you don't, what disorders or what ages or, what type of issues people are coming in with. There may be some of those things that you start to see as time goes on and you're like, I don't really want this, or I don't enjoy this, or I'm kind of dreading this. So you definitely have to pay attention to those feelings. Typically in the beginning of your career, you're going to be able to identify what you don't want to work with a lot quicker than what you do want to work with. So that gives you, kind of eliminates some options, but it also leaves the door open for a lot of others. So when it comes to finding a niche, there's a few reasons behind that. It's not absolutely necessary to have a niche. Some people create their own practices or go through their entire careers working with a little of everybody because they think it keeps it interesting and they don't want to narrow down to any specific population, and that is totally fine. If that sounds like you, don't worry about it. But I think it does help to have a general idea of who it is that you really like and what clients you do your best work with, so you will hopefully prevent burnout later on. So I think when you are going to have a private practice, if that's kind of the route you want to go, or even working at a group practice if possible, having a niche can really set you apart. There's so many therapists out here and there's so much potential competition, even though I don't like looking at it in that specific word. It's kind of like the best thing, maybe like the most options that are out there. And by having a niche, that can sometimes set you apart from everybody else. And depending on what type of practice you work at or what type of setting you work at, you would like typically to have something that sets you apart from everybody, right? You want to be known as the therapist that works with this group. So maybe you get more of that, or people in the community will then start to associate you with that specific population or niche. And then they refer to you because you're the go-to. And there's a lot of, I guess, benefits overall that come with that, personally and professionally. Because again, personally, if you know, like, these are the people I do my best work with, you're going to continue to be excited about being a therapist and working with these people and going to work every day. And I think professionally in the community, if you have this reputation as being this type of therapist, well, then you're going to have more referrals coming in. So it's really good to figure out what that niche might be. Which brings me to a little bit more of those benefits of niching down, because I think it scares people sometimes when they hear stuff like, you should have a niche. Because it's like, oh my gosh, if I narrow down too much, then I might be actually alienating or eliminating certain clients from my caseload. Or I might have a harder time finding clients because I have too small of a pool of people I'm willing to work with. But that's not necessarily the case. I mean, if you have too specific of a niche, like, I only work with 20-year-old engineering majors in college. Like, yeah, you probably will have a more difficult time. But most people, their niche consists of a specific age range or a specific diagnosis or specific goals that the person wants to work towards. And that is going to be specific enough and also broad enough. So some of the other benefits of niching down would be you get to work with your ideal client. Once you start figuring out, like, these are the things that I really love. I love working with the military veterans who are coming back from deployment and trying to adjust to life back at home. Or I love working with, middle schoolers who are about to transition to high school. Then you're going to feel energized by your work. You're also going to start feeling like more of an expert as time goes on because you're seeing more of these people. You understand the population better, and those clients are going to respond better to you because you're going to get them because you've seen different versions of their feelings or their struggles over and over. So you may have a better understanding of their issues than they do, which means that the therapy process is going to go even better because now you guys are working together on a much clearer path. I think also, like I mentioned earlier, typically you're going to have less burnout. If you're working with populations that really don't fit you, like I know when I worked in community mental health and I had to work with really young kids, my youngest was like 4, that would drain me so much because I'd only really worked with adults and that's what I liked. So I was in a facility, I really have a lot of choice. And so I was working with these really young kids, and I didn't like sitting on the floor playing Uno with them and relating to emotions. I didn't like doing some of the play therapy stuff. I just didn't enjoy it. And over time, because I really didn't like it and I didn't feel strong in those skills, and it just felt like so much more work to me, I started to dread those sessions at times and continued to advocate for aging up with the clients that I was getting. So I think for you, if you're figuring out what your niche might be, then start there. Think about what clients do you not want to work with? Which sessions do you feel more exhausted after, and why? Is it because the age is too young? Is it because I've known people who are like, I can't deal with teenagers. I can't deal with all the drama and the gossip and the social media stuff. I love that, so send them to me. But there's people who they're just like, nope, not gonna do it. I don't relate to them in any way. That's fine, because there will be the people who do. So, and that's my next benefit of niching down is, like I hinted at earlier, there's going to be people in the community who are like, oh, somebody called me to see this teenager and I don't really work with them, but I know that so-and-so does there. And then they give you your name, whether that's at a facility you're working at or potentially your own private practice at some point. You get to be really competent in one area, and you get to be known as the person who's competent in that area. And that can really set you up and your business up if that's what you decide to do in the future, have your own practice. It'll really set you up in a great way. So I think there's just so many benefits. Also kind of similar, but with networking. As you network, and if you're able to say, oh, I work with, again, the middle schoolers who are transitioning to high school and the stress that comes with that. That's going to be a lot more memorable for somebody, and they're going to be able to recall you quicker than somebody who's like, oh, well, I kind of work with all ages and I work with anxiety and depression. That's so broad that if somebody gets a call for a population they don't work with, they're not going to think to send them your way. They're going to think about that person who said that they specifically work with this age group or this disorder. So you get to be a little bit more memorable, and it makes networking a lot more worth it for you as time goes on. And like I said, great referral sources as well. Now, you may be thinking, okay, that's great and all, but how do I find my niche? How do I figure out exactly who I want to see or what that looks like? Well, there's a few different ways that you can go about doing that. The first one is really look at some of the clients that you've worked with in the past or that you're currently working with. Think about your favorites. Yeah, we're not supposed to have favorites. But who cares? We're human and we all do, right? We have certain clients who are like, oh my gosh, yeah, I get to see them today. Or, wow, I wonder how they've been. It's been like a month since I saw them. I hope they're doing well. I'm glad they're on the schedule today. Or when you finish the session, you're like, gosh, that was such a good session. So think about those people, the ones that when you look at your schedule for the day, you're like, awesome, I'm starting my day with this person. Think about those people. Like I said, past or current, ones that just kind of stuck with you, people that you felt energized by when you would see them. People, when they left, you felt good about yourself and the work that you were doing with them. And write down either their main characteristics, maybe it's any common qualities that they have. Was it their age? Was it the place that they worked? Was it something about their identity in particular? Was it potentially a trait that you've noticed, like perfectionism or something like that? Figure out what are some of the common threads from all of those sessions where you were really like, I like that client, or I'm excited to see them today. So kind of brainstorm, look at your current caseload, think about past, and write down what are the things that those people had in common? Why did you feel that way that you did after your sessions with them? And finding those common qualities or common themes among them will help you to really start narrowing down your niche. So if you're able to say something like, well, I really like working with parents who are navigating empty nest syndrome because their last child is going off to college. Well, then you start writing down, well, what are some of those themes you've noticed? Is it that the parents now have to work a lot on their relationship? So is it that they are figuring out what their identity is when they're not having to be a parent as actively on a daily basis? So coming up with some different themes and ideas of stuff that you've noticed. I think the other thing is too, think about trainings that you've been to or books that you've read on certain topics. And I know a lot of that stuff can be really dry and boring. So this may be an easier task to do, but think about the ones that you actually enjoyed. What training did you sit through that you were like, oh wow, I'm actually paying attention and taking notes to that one? Or what conference did somebody speak at and that one speaker like really stuck with you, and afterwards you followed them on social media and you were thinking about the topics they were discussing? That will also help you kind of pick up on some of those themes and qualities that really appeal to you and what you like to work with. So figure out what you want to get more training or education in. If you really love working with clients who are recovering from a major trauma and you just get energized by helping them build those coping skills and process that trauma and start creating that next part of their life after the trauma, then maybe that needs to be your niche. Maybe then you're going to get trained in things that are more trauma related so that you can continue to work with that population and benefit them in as many ways as possible. But I think sometimes people, when they're thinking about a niche, they're focused too much on maybe like the marketing side of it. Which niche or which population out here really isn't getting a lot of attention, and that's what I'll go after because that's going to be more profitable. Or who needs this the most. But if you're not considering how you do your best work and what you enjoy, none of that stuff's gonna matter as much, right? It doesn't matter if you're like, well, nobody really sees this specific population, so let me go after that. If that's not actually something you relate to in any way or enjoy or feel energized by, it's not going to be great for you overall. Yeah, maybe you have some clients coming in with that niche, but you might be drained after some of those sessions because that work doesn't come as naturally to you. So it's also okay if your niche changes over time. It's completely fine. I've known people that have loved working with young kids, and over time they were like, I just really want some variety, so I'm going to start seeing some high schoolers, and they have kind of two niches. You also don't need just one. So I know for me, I like working with, say, like young adults who are figuring out how to deal with anxiety, how to improve their relationships, how to set boundaries, dealing with who it is that they want to be, and maybe some of the perfectionism that they've had over time, and that overachiever kind of hustle culture thing that they've been dealing with. So I love working with that population, right? But the 20-year-olds, sometimes then those are the 30-year-olds who are still experiencing those same types of feelings and stressors, but just now at a different job. Or even the 40-year-olds that are like, wait, my life was not supposed to turn out this way, and now I need to figure out how to reset. Well, that's super similar to the 20-year-olds that are like, what do I want my life to turn out like? So I think it's okay to have, like I said, common qualities, even if the ages are a little bit different. Or if, like I said, for me, if I'm like, okay, I really want to see, the anxious perfectionists who are struggling with self-esteem and trying to figure out their identity. But then I also see military veterans and retirees. Some of those themes are going to be the same, but it's okay to have two separate niches. But you just don't want to have too many people that you say you work with, because then you might as well just be a generalist at that point. So, and again, it's not bad to be a generalist. I've known some that they market like crazy. They are out here like really showing up and doing great work, and people refer to them, and that is completely fine if that's where you want to be. But sometimes, especially if you're going to have your own practice, niching down really helps you. Or if you start noticing a lot of burnout from being a generalist, then start niching down just a little bit more. Maybe now you're not seeing young kids, you're not seeing any kids, you're only seeing adults, and staying more generalist with the issues that people are coming in with, but you got the age range narrowed down. So it's okay to kind of tweak things as time goes on. I've also known people who loved working with kids, and then once they had their own, they were like, no, any patients I have needs to go to my own kids. So I'm going to age up who I work with, and that's okay too. So you are not married to your niche. You can switch it up. And as you go through your own life stages, like the example I just gave, your niche may change too. So as you get burned out in one area, or you're just like, gosh, I've been doing this for so long, I'd really like to switch it up a little bit, and you switch niches, that's okay. So I think the biggest thing to think of is yourself in all of this. A lot of programs, a lot of jobs, a lot of bosses, all these like systems we're all a part of, they usually tell new therapists that you need to do everything for the client. You need to be there for the client. You need to adapt to the client or the agency's needs or whatever other piece of the system, the policies or whatever the insurance is telling you or whatever else is going on. But you need to focus on you, because guess what? All those issues and stuff will still be there. No one's looking out for you. So if you've figured out who you do your best work with, advocate for that. And if that facility or place that you're at isn't willing to let you do that, then it might be time to move on. But if you aren't focusing on who you are as a therapist, what energizes you, what you want to work with, what you like, you're not really doing a great service to the career. Even if you're helping out some of these clients, which is great, if you're not helping yourself out, I don't know how long you're going to be able to sustain that career. So take some time, think about who you do your best work with, think about which people out here are you so excited to see, and what some of those common themes are. And that may help guide you a lot closer to finding what your niche or niches might be. So good luck. If you want to share what your niche is or which things you may be interested in working in, go ahead and put that in the comments. I'd be curious to see what you guys are thinking of, or what other people work with out here. It's really cool when I feel like I know people who are working with different populations, which you guys have seen from the interviews that I've done. I love learning about what other people are working with, because even if I don't want to work with that population, or I just feel like I can't, it doesn't mean I don't want to know about it. And I like knowing people that do different things too, because then I have more people to refer to. So, and it'll be the same for you guys. So go ahead and share, if you want to, who it is that you work with or what you've found while doing some of these exercises. And subscribe. Stay up to date with whatever's going on this channel. But good luck on your journey, and I'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.